Oh, Rumen,
Here.
Gutierrez, Commissioner Thompson, Commissioner Oz,
Here.
Vice Chair McMahon,
Here.
Chair Vasquez.
Get these mics going. Okay, there we go. Yeah, sorry, my mic wasn't on. Okay, so moving on to agenda item 3, approval of agenda. Has everyone had a chance to review the agenda? And do we have any amendments to the agenda? Okay, so seeing no amendments, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll motion to approve. Second.
So motion by Thompson, second by Vice Chair McMahon. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So moving on to agenda item 4, approval of minutes. So these are the minutes from the April 5th regular Parks and Recreation Commission meetings. Does anyone have any revisions to the minutes? And staff, are there any corrections or additions? Or have any revisions? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from April 5? Okay, so motion by Vice Chair McMahon and a second by Commissioner Shea. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so minutes are approved. It looks like agenda item 5, we've received 2 communications for the commission, which have been included in tonight's meeting packet. Do we need to have someone explain them or go over them or anything? And did we receive any additional ones prior to tonight?
We have not received any additional correspondence, Chair, and if there are any questions, I'm happy to address them, but there's an invitation to the BU event that happened this last Sunday, and then an update from the Peña Historical Society President Cricket Knopf. So, and all the information, as you said, is in the packet.
Awesome, thank you so much. Okay, so moving on to agenda item 6, we have a presentation tonight, actually 2 presentations tonight presented by Recreation Coordinator Kristen Milliken.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Kristen Milliken, and I oversee 2 program areas. I oversee special events and culture arts. I'm the recreation coordinator. And over here to my right is my support staff. I'll let him introduce himself.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Aaron George, and I am the Recreation Specialist 2 for special events.
I'm going to go ahead and get us started with the first program area that I oversee, which is culture arts. Thank you.
It'll be just a second. We're having some technical difficulties with the monitors.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. Like I said, we're going to go ahead and do the first program area, which is culture arts. Next slide. So some of our current class offerings that we have our music classes where we offer guitar, violin, cello, piano, and ukulele. We also have our ballet classes where we have multiple levels available. In addition, we have voice lessons where they are private or group lessons. Next slide, please. Some of our other class offerings are acrylic acrylic paint, where we have our Painter's Choice workshops and our all levels painting class. And then finally, we have our art and activity camps, and those are the different camps that we offer for art and activity. Next slide. Some of our new class offerings, we have our arts imagery experience, which is designed for kids, where they get to use vintage cameras, wax wrapping art, and cyanotype art. And of course, we also have our School of Rock camps this summer, which is our Rockin' Rookies camp. And then we also have Rock 101 camps, which includes Beatles, Imagine Dragons, and pop rock. Next slide. Other class offerings include, I'll stay close to the mic, I promise. Other class offerings that we have that are new, we have our cricket classes, which are design your own back to school supplies, our cozy candle mug, and then our trick or treat bag. And then finally, we have a new class under acrylic painting, which is Paint Your Words, where inspirational words can either be painted by the students or they can be carved in wood. Next slide. So some of our accomplishments, some of our instructors continued with the virtual platform, which was a great option for some of our families. And then also we acquired some new contractors, which I just shared with you. School of Rock, so Leslie Silver, and then also Laura Preen, who teaches the art imagery experience. And then finally, one of our accomplishments, we showcased some of our classes during events, which was the 4th of July. We had our voice classes out there, and then we also had our music, some of our music students out there. And then during Arts Week, we plan on having Tori Carr, who leads our acrylic paint classes, and she's going to come and lead a painting. So next slide. Finally, some of our challenges for cultural arts is always acquiring the contractors to teach our classes, and then also the competition. So for example, our ballet classes are located at the McBride Center, which is within close proximity. We also have 2 other ballet facilities. So next slide. Any questions or comments about cultural arts? Once, twice. So
Have any commissioner questions or comments? Seeing none, I think we can move on to the next presentation for special event.
sounds good. Erin, I'll let you take the lead.
Thank you, commissioners. Now I'm going to be talking a little bit about special events and what we have done over the past year. So some of our community favorite events that we have brought to the community this year were our Bunnies and Bonnets event. We will be bringing our Creek Walk concert series back. That will be starting on June 16th and run to August 11th, and it will be every Friday night. It'll be $3 per person. Kids 12 and under will be free. And season passes will be back $20 per person. And we will be having a cashless option for future events. We will also be having our 4th of July fireworks show and concert. And we actually have a little video for our 4th of July event that one of our staff put together. So I'll go ahead and play that.
Hey, be safe, have fun. God bless America. Thank you very much for being here.
So that kind of gives an idea of the free 4th of July and fireworks show that we will be providing again this year. And the band we have will be Crossman Connection. They've played at a couple creek walks in the past. After that, we will have our major concert on Saturday, August 19th, and that will feature Confunction. Saturday, October 28th will bring us our Halloween event, and Neighborhood Santa will be coming back on the week of December 11th through December 15th. So through our events, we have actually had a couple updates that we'd like to share. For our Halloween event, we changed the parade route. In years past, the parade route had deviated from the main event area, which is around the amphitheater at Andrews Park. But this year, we decided to make the parade route go around our vendors and keep it more centralized. That way, our vendors get more exposure, increasing business, and just making sure that everybody has a chance to see all of the adorable pups that are dressed up in their costumes. We also added a pumpkin patch, which Sweet Peas Boutique donated some pumpkins for, where the dogs could go in the grass area at Andrews Park and pick out a pumpkin of their choosing. For our Neighborhood Santa event, we did quite a lot of new updates with collaboration with Police Activities League to build a float for the parade. We collaborated with PAL every Tuesday for 4 weeks at the Harbison Event Center, which you can tell at that picture right there, the first one on the top left. We utilized the bumper car space out there. And we do plan on collaborating with them again this year for Neighborhood Santa. And also for that same event, we collaborated with City of Vacaville Life and had many city volunteers from other departments help out. We also love connecting with our community. Each year, special events takes on an intern, and last year our intern's name was Fatima, and she helped out during the Creek Walk season. We also have had volunteers from various organizations. So for Bunnies and Bonnets, we had help from Junior Wildcats, Air Blair Athletics, and Vacaville Art Gallery. For our upcoming Vacatry event, we will have Vacaville Swim Club and more to come. Some of the new events that we presented in the last year were our Dia de los Muertos event, which was first time, although it was raining, had amazing attendance. We had a couple vendors, including the Vacaville Heritage Council, Peña Historical Society, Fruity Mania, and we also had some entertainment from Desantes Unidos and Los Cochinos. We had face painting, a reflection walk, and a community altar, and we hope to have more vendors at the event this year, as well as an art element. We also had our District 5 movie night, where we watched Strange World over at the Three Oaks Community Center, which was met with a lot of praise and thanks from the community. We also will be having our Vacatry event in a couple weeks over at the Three Oaks Community Center and Walter V. Graham Aquatic Center. That will be Sunday, May 21st from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. and will be for children ages 7 through 14 and will feature a swim, bike, run triathlon format. We also have a new event coming later this year where we are involved with Arts Week. More information on that will be released later, but we plan on doing a paint on Main, which, as Kristen said, will be with one of our contractors for cultural arts. We've had quite a lot of collaborators over this past year, including but not limited to Downtown Vacaville, DVBID, Visit Vacaville, Vacaville Chamber of Commerce, Vacaville Museum, Vacaville Art Gallery, and PAL. Some of the challenges that we have faced through the past year with special events is securing staff and volunteers for our growing community events. We always try to find the best ways to involve our community, and with the size of our community, we need lots of hands on deck. So always trying to find more ways that we can better efficiently make these events possible for the community. Securing sponsorships. Sponsorships are a massive part of the event, and they help offset costs for events and bring higher quality events to our community. And lastly, inflation. The prices of everything have gone up, including some of our staples for events, fencing, restroom, fireworks. So it's difficult to plan budget-wise and trying to do all in our power to make sure that we can provide the best things for everybody. But even though we've had challenges, we've had quite a few accomplishments as well. We have been bringing new events to the community, like the ones I had mentioned, Vacaville, Arts Week, District 5 Movie Night, in Dia de los Muertos. We have added new layers to our events, including the Pumpkin Patch for Halloween, the Petting Zoo for bunnies and bonnets. We have had partnerships with internal staff and local business. We have had CalFest training options, and we are happy to bring cashless options for our events now in the future. We plan to head more towards a cashless option as it is a much safer option for our staff and for other cashiers, and it is a much faster and convenient option for our community. And now we are open to any questions or comments.
Are there any questions or comments from the commission? And I see Commissioner Oz.
Thank you, Aaron, for your presentation. Kristen, thank you for yours as well. I really enjoyed the videos. I think, you know, there's a lot of things that make Vacaville very special, but I would put right at the top of the list are some of these events that really bring the community together. I've been going to the 4th of July event every year, just enjoy being there, and Creek Walk is just fantastic. So thank you for everything you do. I think that really gives a community a sense of community. So, you know, thank you for doing that. But I guess my question sort of centers around a question about the events that never did occur. So can you give us a sense? Have there been any events that the community some members of the community have came out and said, we'd really like to see this event or that event, and we weren't, for one reason or another, weren't able to pull that off? Or was there a previous event that we had to cancel and we haven't been able to resurrect? Just give me some.
Thank you for your question.
Yeah.
Some of the feedback that we have received from the community is being able to incorporate like a multicultural art event. And so we have been able to respond, and that's why we had our Dia de los Muertos event last year. And then that's why we also want to have more of a presence this year during Arts Week. So we are working towards making sure that we do have that response, and we are listening to our community and having events that the people want. That's why we're here. That's why we do what we do.
Thank you, Commissioner Oz. I have Commissioner Shea.
Thank you for the presentation. I've never heard of CalFest before. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What kind of training do they offer? And is there any kind of safety component, not to, you know, be the downer in the room when we got to see all the fun stuff, but it is a changing world. And as we've seen in the news lately, there's just lots of safety concerns now at any kind of public gathering. So is that part of CalFest? Is that one of their components, or do we have that internally, like at the city level, for event safety?
Thank you so much for your question. So safety is number one for me at events. Having a fun event, fantastic, but number one, having a safe event. So let me go back to your first question, which was, what is CalFest? So CalFest, it's an opportunity for the event planners to come together and network and really not reinvent the wheel. It was this year, it was in Reno, and it was a 3-day long event. And so it's overnight, and there's different workshops that you can go to. Safety, I would say last year, I'm trying to think about this year. I attended this year and last year. Safety was more of a component last year, I would say. This year, the focus was more on sponsorships. But I remember coming out of the conference last year and feeling really inspired going into Bunnies and Bonnets and wanting to make sure, okay, how can we make Bunnies and Bonnets even safer? We have that big area, that big grassy area, and Monte Vista, that very busy street right there. What can we do if a car, you know, heaven forbid, a car wanted to drive on the grass? And so that's where I was like, okay, we have all those city vehicles. We can go ahead and create a barricade. And that's what we did. So we are very conscious of wanting to keep our events safe. And thank you for bringing that question tonight.
Not a fun one, I know.
No, but it's something that we have to be honest with ourselves, and we want to keep people safe. We want to make sure that people feel safe to come out and enjoy these events. It's important. Thank you.
Okay, any other commissioner questions or comments? Thank you so much, Kirsten, for the presentation, and we really appreciate all that you all are doing and all the hard work you're putting into special events. And like Commissioner Oz says, the events really do bring the community together, especially around special interests. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you for having us.
Let's see. Okay, so moving on to agenda item 7. This is agenda item 7 is business from the floor. This is the time to address the commission with issues that are not on the agenda, but that are within the subject matter, commission's subject matter jurisdiction. There is a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker, and go ahead and does anyone wish to address the commission tonight with a topic or an issue that is not on tonight's agenda? And if you could also just please state your name for the record.
My name is John Goodwin. I just have a couple things. I want to thank the commission and staff for all the support you've been giving the pickleball community. We really appreciate it. I wanted to let you know that we're having a public event May 20th, Saturday from 9 to noon, coming up in a couple weeks. We're going to be doing a pickleball social. We're going to be teaching pickleball, inviting the public and everything. So wanted to make sure you are all invited and everybody in the public as well. Should be a really fun event. I also wanted to let you know that we are still waiting for lines to be drawn at North Orchard. We're still out there, I don't know, many times, about 4 times a week, chalking our lines and using tape to create our courts and bringing our nets and stuff. So we're still waiting for those lines to be painted. We're not sure what the delay is, but we're waiting there. And I also wanted to let you know that we are going to be doing our pickleball court demo next Tuesday night at the city council. Before that, like we did a couple weeks or maybe a month ago here. And we're also going to be inviting city council to our event on May 20th. So hope you can all make it. It should be fun. Thank you very much.
What was the location of the event?
Oh, really good question. Thank you. It's going to be at North Orchard Park from 9 to noon.
Thank you so much.
My name is Darlene, and I am a pickleball player, and I just had to come and say hello to you all. I do appreciate the support that you have given us. And I do appreciate that we do have a porta potty now at North Orchard. We don't have a combination to get into it. So we have it, right? It's not been there. We're excited that it's there, but well, we gotta use it. So, especially for that event, if we had that combination, and what the heck, how do we get the combination? Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is staff able to address the porta potty comment question?
Yes.
Thank you.
When the fences blew down at Centennial, we had to move our structured tennis classes over to North Orchard. And so we put the porta potty out at North Orchard to primarily accommodate the classes and the participants. So it is just a temporary component that's going to be out there until we can get the fences at Centennial fixed and then move our classes back out to Centennial. But we can definitely talk about having the porta potty available for your event on May 20th.
Okay, thank you so much, Elizabeth. Okay, so seeing no more comments or business from the floor, I'll go ahead and close business from the floor and move on to agenda item 8, which is reports of Park Manager Wallace Avio. I have to say it right this time. And he'll provide us an update and report on the parks.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I only have a couple things tonight. We have one memorial bench request that has been put in. This area that's been requested is um, right here. You can see where the lift station for that's being built out there is, and this is the access to the parking lot there. Right up the hill here is there's a bench located right here, which was the spouse of the person who is going to have the bench put on over here. Have that. And then as of today, we have the completing of the Browns Valley Park tree removal replacement. It's been a few, it's been over maybe 2 years now that since we've had this, that the trees have been in decline and were removed, and we just were able to, with the weather, how it held us up this winter, we were just able to finish up getting these trees in, and with the irrigation system to go along to water them and in times of drought. So that finishes everything off for us. Any questions?
Are there any commissioner questions or comments? And I have one about, I had a community member approach me at an event recently and asked me about the swings at Cannon Station Park. Is that a you question or is that
It's a me
a
question.
park planner question?
No,
Okay.
that is a me question. So we have the component to repair the piece there. We're having great difficulty finding a contractor to come and install that for us, which is, part of the Beeler Park project that was slated and went out for advertisement for installation, and we got no bids on that. They're just all the contractors are just full to the max. So we are in contact with a company right now. Hopefully they'll be able to come out and give us a bid, and we will get that fixed as soon as possible. But that's what we're waiting on at this point.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Any other commissioner questions or comments? Thank you so much, Wallace, for the update tonight. Really appreciate it. Okay, so moving on to the big topic of the night, agenda item 9A, the Centennial Park Master Plan. I don't know if there's a staff member that wants to introduce the topic or just let Park Planner Hesterman kick it off.
Thank you, Melody. Sure. Good evening. I'm Hugh Hesterman, park planner for the city. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I haven't seen you all for quite a while. Tonight is a culmination, I would say, of many years of planning. And beside me is Meredith Branstead from Helix Environmental Planning. They are the firm that has picked up the pieces for us from the beginnings of our master plan for Centennial Park. And she's got a nice little presentation to run us through the project. And then after, we'll certainly have a time for questions. Glasses.
Thank you, commissioners, for having me here today. I'm very excited to tell you about what we have planned for Centennial Park. So this is the presentation of the draft master plan for Centennial Park. And as you see, this is a culmination, as Hugh said, hopefully of taking the next step forward on this project after a number of years of planning. So just a quick summary of sort of how this master plan was developed. Planning for Centennial Park sort of started in 2008 with the golf course feasibility study, which found at that point that the golf course previously planned for the site is not feasible. In 2013, the city completed the recreation needs assessment, and then in 2017 through 2021, as part of the development of the city park and recreation master plan, there were a number of outreach and survey events that were done in tandem with the Park and Recreation Master Plan and also developing the Centennial Park Master Plan. And that work was done by another consulting firm, and they completed the Park and Recreation Master Plan and completed an admin draft of the Centennial Park Master Plan. And then in the summer of 2022, Helix started work on finalizing that admin draft master plan and just updating a little to reflect some of the cities and communities' needs and priorities that have changed since that original admin draft was prepared. So in October of 2022, we prepared an updated illustrative master plan, which is the picture master plan. And we revised the existing conditions map based on the changes that had happened in the intervening 3 years. In December, we had 2 community meetings. The first one was on a Saturday morning, and we had about 60 people who attended the in-person meeting. And then the following week, we had a virtual community meeting for which about 30 people participated in. We took the information and feedback that we got back from those meetings. We had very extensive comments and a pretty spirited discussion at our in-person meeting for most of the 2 hours. So we took that information, worked with city staff, and we then developed the updated draft master plan and a phasing plan, which is what you have hopefully had a chance to review in your packet and what I'll be presenting today. And that brings us to today, where we are here presenting it for your review and comment and to hear comments from the public. So this is the updated existing conditions map, and the key points were that between the original administrative draft master plan and our current plan, the city has constructed an interim dog park, and also the Vacaville United Soccer Club has constructed a new field on the west side. Sorry, it's north is not on the other side of the page. I always have to think. On the west side of their existing soccer complex. So there was just some, as I said, we updated the existing conditions to reflect those new facilities. And here's our existing draft master plan. So this is the overview of the entire park. You can zoom in or on the file that is posted on the city's website at your leisure. And I'm going to walk through the various areas here. What I'm really focusing on today is going to be some of the changes that were made since the 2019 version of the master plan and how we addressed and integrated comments that we did receive from the public through our outreach process in the last year. So consistent with how this park has kind of been planned, there's 3 major areas. We're going to start with the southernmost, which is that active recreation zone, and that's located here in the green border, the south end of the property between Browns Valley Parkway and that south fork of Horse Creek. And it encompasses the existing ball fields and really the vast majority of the existing improvements on the site. So this table just summarizes the various park elements and how they changed from the previous master plan. So these are the major elements that are in that active recreation zone. There'll be a community recreation center. We're not making any changes to the concept for that. It's still envisioned to be between 70 and 75,000 square feet, have a number of meeting rooms, gyms, and lots of other elements. And again, that is all detailed in the previously prepared document, which is Appendix A in the report. It will have a permanent dog park. One of the things that we did change following the meeting is adding some safety lighting. And then we're also looking at, have included raising portions of it by up to 5 feet to kind of level the ground out in the areas because the dog park is going to be over part of the existing landfill site. Tennis courts. Following our meetings in December, we expanded that from 4 to 6 lighted courts, and there will be no pickleball courts included in the master plan at this time. lighted basketball courts are reducing from 4 to 3, mostly for space purposes. We had to balance out some space, and that was what staff felt was more appropriate for the site. We did add a large maintenance building to the ball field complex, and as well as a maintenance building and dumpster were added to the Horse Creek Soccer Complex. The other, I'll get into that later. Sorry. The water play area in the central lawn that that may be constructed using like a misters or other similar low water use features. That was one concern that was brought up in December meetings was about water availability. In the walking trails, which are mostly on the very south end of the site, more picnic tables and trails were added along there and some smaller trails to create more loops. The master plan still includes enhanced landscape frontage and entry monuments, and those entries would be gated, and there's no change in that. And it would also include a skate park. An RC car track was added to the plan, and then some renovations on the roller hockey court. Just that we are now including perimeter fencing so that it can be used as an overflow parking area, but also can be fenced off when we don't want cars in there to maintain a safe, usable space for roller hockey or other similar kinds of sports. So, looking at the western, edge of that zone. So this is the area that's sort of north of that west of the existing entry road. That it would include the new dog park, the existing roller hockey court, and then also the new RC car track and the skate park right down by the roller hockey. So that becomes sort of the, I guess, the wheeled sports area. And the dog park would include both a large and small dog area, and then also some kind of more open running areas that aren't going to be landscaped due to some of the limitations of what can be done on top of that landfill cap. So the central southern area here, we have the existing ball fields. Not a lot of changes to that area. We would include some improved entry plazas, the 3 lighted basketball courts. In the future, Field 4 may have lights added to it. And then also in here is the recreation center, which is next to kind of a large wetland. We are also have considered now maybe expanding that existing wetland, which gives the city the potential for doing some on-site mitigation there due to the limits of kind of how the parking lot and the recreation center are laying out. There are likely to be some impacts to those wetlands. And so being able to expand that existing wetland may give an opportunity for some on-site mitigation, which may ease the permitting process through that. Also then here would be the new tennis complex located down in kind of the little bit lower bowl. So that should ease some of the problems with wind impacting tennis games down there. The other features here in this area is the central lawn and the water play area, or splash pads or misters of some sort. As we'll talk about again in phasing, some of these areas, that large central lawn is the area where the newest soccer field is located. And if we go to the next slide, that soccer field would be replaced before the central lawn was built with a new soccer field on the other side of the complex. And so this is the final eastern area of our active recreation zone, which includes that new field, some more trails. One of the things we did add through the site as a result of our December meeting was we actually now have a loop trail that does essentially go around the entire perimeter. You can see some of it here just east of the road that goes to the north and wraps around the whole thing. So there's now a much larger loop trail that circles the entire property. The next zone is the Creekside Discovery Zone, outlined in blue, and this is this kind of wedge between the 2 creeks, located kind of sort of in the center of the park. So some of the major elements in here, the Creekside Discovery Zone, we sort of start moving from our really much more organized sports fields and locations to still very active uses, but a little bit more free and casual play kind of uses. So some of the main elements here is the nature playscape, which would be like a nature-inspired large play area. And we just moved this now west to improve the connection to the water play area and the central lawn. And we actually added a pedestrian bridge over the South Fork of Horse Creek, so it more directly connects those two elements, which are both expected to be very popular with children and families. The sand volleyball courts, we have actually consolidated them all into one area and moved them east, which is farther from adjacent residences. We're also now noting that they would be expected to be lighted, and that was all as a result of many of the comments that we received in our outreach meetings and some desire from the community who would want to use those. The event pavilion is one of the places we made the most changes between December and today, is we really reduced the size to create a more enclosed event space so that it's more consistent with what the city's planned use of the site is, which is for smaller private events like birthday parties, retirement parties, weddings, those kinds of events. Not the original master plan showed it as being much more appearing to be an amphitheater. And since the city is not intending to use that space for concerts or other similar things, now I think the event pavilion really is better suited to like being a rental event space. Um, Combined with that, there was a couple acre community orchard originally planned for around that site. And again, having discussed with the city staff what potential maintenance would be in that, and we have actually removed that community orchard entirely due to those concerns. There would still be a pollinator garden located adjacent to the event pavilion. We're envisioning that as a place for taking photos and having other kind of time around that. As I mentioned, we've added a pedestrian bridge over the South Fork of Horse Creek. And then with this space that was formerly being used for this event pavilion and community orchard, we have added a disc golf course to this area. The group picnic areas were relocated slightly, but no fundamental changes. And then the parking lots, we actually combined our main parking lots and centralized them in this area. And then we also added a small parking lot along the edge for the disc golf and like trails access. So what does that look like here? So here's what it looks like in plan view. You can see, I think it's a much more, by moving those parking lots and kind of combining the volleyball courts to the bottom part of the slide there, we've really kind of, I think, centralized a lot of that activity and moved it farther away from the adjacent residences. That was a big concern, but both for noise and light issues. And then you can see there's just much more open space, and the disc golf course, mostly it winds up through the existing trails that are along the edge of the property, and it would actually move from here and also into the northern part of the property as well. So the northern area, northern half of the site really, is our nature exploration zone. And that's everything north of the Middle Fork of Horse Creek. So the primary uses envisioned for this, I thought I fixed that. Oh, nope, it's okay. I swear I fixed it once. Ignore the header. Sorry. The nature exploration area, primary uses are the bike park in the north corner, and then a great meadow that walking trails through there, and then we've also integrated the disc golf course sort of along some of those walking trails through that meadow to advantage of all that space. We also have an observation point. Some of the changes that we made is elevating the observation point and the meadow to create more of a rolling topography, elevating the bike park to give it some additional topography to aid in kind of the bike track and mountain biking design that can happen on it. We also added a maintenance building to the bike park so that it can have dedicated maintenance equipment located nearby. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the walking trails have been expanded throughout the park so that they now complete have a complete perimeter loop of the park, which was again one of the comments that we received at our public meetings, was interest in that. So this area focuses on the bike park, which is in the northeast corner. As I said, one of the things we did make clear here is that it would be fenced so it will be used and be able to be closed down and not used at other times when the city doesn't want it to be open. You'll see we also added in here an overflow parking area, as that kind of grayish square on the top, that could be used for special events to just add a little bit of additional parking capacity as needed. We also did move the group picnic area. It had been located further away, kind of along the creek, and in the interest of making it more accessible for folks toting their picnic and barbecue stuff, we've moved that down so it's closer to the parking lot and more easily accessible. And then here we're looking at the rest of the Great Meadow area, which the scale is very deceiving. It is obviously quite large. It makes up the vast majority of the park. The two kind of existing detention basins would be maintained and sort of enhanced with some perimeter trails. And then you can see the loop trail that goes around the entire park, and then a number of trails that go through the meadow themselves to provide a variety of walking and biking options. Oh, right. Sorry. And the disc golf. So the disc golf, there'd be 9 holes of the disc golf course, kind of running along the existing trail on the west side, and then back kind of through the center of the meadow. So you could have an extensive disc golf area through that nature space. So we worked with the city staff to identify potential phases based on community input, city priorities, and potential funding. So we have phase 1 are the areas in pink. That includes the bike park, the meadow, and the dog park. Phase 2 would be the recreation area and tennis courts and the associated trails and entries associated with that along Browns Valley Parkway. Phase 3 is updating those existing soccer complex and the ball field complex in that kind of purple color. And then phase 4 would be filling in a lot of the smaller items in kind of smaller active use items in the active recreation area. And then finally, phase 5 would include essentially all of the nature exploration area, the central area in green. So we also put together some fairly detailed, the city has checked over our spreadsheet, estimates for estimated construction costs for each of the phases. So you can see here total construction for the park in 2023 dollars, we're estimating at about $122 to $123 million. Please note this is for construction costs. Additional soft costs, which would be design, permitting, city project management, inspections, all of that would be somewhere between 30% and 50%. It depends to some extent on what elements are included. Obviously, design of a recreation center is a much more costly and inspection and design project management, like intensive activity, than maybe a new ball field, right? So, or trails and a disc golf course. So that can really vary. And you can see here, so we have broken down by phases. If you have more detailed questions, we can be happy about any certain elements. Probably not prepared to answer those in detail now, but I'd be happy to get back to you later on that when I can look over things on the spreadsheet in more detail. Implementation. So in general for the implementation, the next step following adoption of the master plan or approval of this master plan to move forward would be doing the environmental review. The city is looking now into, I think, is identifying exactly what kind of document that is going to be and how they want to approach that document for the master plan. But most likely that will take about 6 to 12 months once it's initiated. And it may also include a number of technical studies. So in that CEQA process is where if it's deemed to be necessary, there might be traffic studies, noise studies, lighting impact studies, those kinds of things, as well as like biological and cultural resources. So all of those kinds of very detailed things would go into that environmental review. Following that, you'd be ready to move forward with with construction documents, which typically will take 12 to 18 months. Again, it really depends on the how complicated the item is that's being designed. And that construction document process includes generally preliminary plans. So whoever is doing that work would take the master plan, start looking in more detail at laying everything out. It would usually involve a community input process. So there is another opportunity for the community to weigh in and give feedback. It would, as then design moves forward, if there are any impacts to sensitive resources such as wetlands, or there's a bridge crossing of the creek or things like that involved in that particular project, it might need regulatory permits. And then finally, the design team would develop plans and specifications, which would be used to bid and for the contractor to build. And then that would be followed by construction, which again may usually take somewhere between 6 and 18 months, again, depending on the complicatedness of the element. And to be clear, that the implementation schedule, this is sort of general timelines, it really depends on funding availability. City staff is obviously working on identifying funding for various elements, but as each phase or sub-phase moves forward and elements are developed, they would follow something. Also, I wanted to point out that during the environmental review process is another opportunity where the public can comment on that CEQA document and provide input and comments back. End of my presentation, and for members of the public or anyone who's watching this on video, if you have any comments or questions, you can contact Hugh. His number and email address are here on the slide. And then I want to say to the commissioners, thank you very much for your time and attention today, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Before we take commissioner questions or comments or open it to the public, can we just clarify? So tonight is just a review. There's no action to be taken, just because I'm looking through the packet and there's different notes in here about eventual approval. So tonight we are only taking comments, questions, feedback on the master plan, and it will come back to Parks and Rec before any CEQA, before anything like that is initiated, just to confirm.
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct.
Okay. Okay, just want to make sure that is stated. I think maybe we'll open to the public before taking commissioner questions or comments. I'll go ahead and open the agenda item to the public. You have three minutes for questions, comments, feedback that will be taken note of.
Goodwin again. Ooh, sorry. John Goodwin. I had a question. I saw that the tennis courts were expanded, and then specifically the change was made that there'd be no pickleball courts. Obviously, I have a question about that. I just want to know what the plan is then. If there's no pickleball courts there, I think the commission knows that the pickleball community is looking for like a regional facility where there's at least 6 courts, because we play as a group. We don't go out and play 2 to 4 people just casually. We are on social media. We show up. We're 24 to 40 people playing at a time because it's a very social thing. Last 15 minutes, we're switching partners and everything. So I guess if there's no pickleball there, I'm wondering what the city's plan is for ultimately getting a regional pickleball facility that I think the city needs. I think you've all seen the article in the Reporter. It's one of the fastest growing sports and such. So I just hope there's a plan for pickleball. I haven't heard it expressed by the city, and sorry, maybe I've missed it, but I know there's a couple community parks that have 2 pickleball courts planned or something like that. But I'm wondering what the plan is for a regional facility. I hope that's in the works. Thank you.
I think before you start your comments, I think Park Planner Hesterman has a comment.
Yes, I'll just give a quick response, John. Are you still there? Yeah. Yeah, so at the request of the combined tennis and pickleball community, you're correct that the pickleball courts that were previously shown in the Centennial Park Master Plan have been removed specifically to provide more tennis courts. But we hear your plea, and we are working on a location for additional pickleball courts. No plan has been established for a major complex, if you will, but we do understand that's needed. So tonight, what we're just doing is we're saying, based on what the tennis and pickleball communities who have gathered together under Tony's direction or coverage, is saying they would like to sacrifice the pickleball at Centennial in favor of more tennis courts. So that's what we've done there.
I also think that, pickleball courts, you can put 6 pickleball courts in the space of 2 tennis courts. It's not a big deal. I saw on the plan that you're planning on lighting basketball courts, lighting the bike trail, bike path. There's a lot of lights and a lot of facilities that are being built. We're asking for 6 permanent pickleball courts. Lighted would be great. And, Fairfield has 16 permanent courts. There is no permanent pickleball court in Vacaville. It's kind of a shame. And I don't know, it does not seem like it would take that much money to surface 2 tennis courts and put 6 pickleball. I mean, we'll mark them out for you if you want. It's just not that, doesn't seem like it would be that expensive. And I don't know.
John, thank you so much for your comments. They're noted. And just for the Brown Act, we want to stay to the agenda item, which is Centennial Park. So thank you. And let me go ahead and restart the time for, want to go ahead and step up? Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioners, Melody, Elizabeth, you, Meredith. Tony Moras, President of the East Lawn Community Tennis Association. I am talking regularly with Diana, who's the chief of Vacaville Pickleball. So we're in sync with this, and we're also providing feedback to folks. The drive here was to do tennis here, and then we'll find a place, a home base for pickleball. But coming back to the presentation, plans. The planning for this plan started many years ago, 2008. The public outreach was done in 2017. At that time, tennis was done primarily on the club courts. We were fat, dumb, and happy there. Very little going on in the public courts. Post-pandemic, about 2 years ago, In Shape terminated the tennis director positions and put us out on the street. So we moved as many of the programs and activities we could from the club courts to the municipal courts, and that's why they're saturated with tennis today. Our dream has always been to have a replacement for that home base like we used to have at the club. Enough courts where you can run programs. I'm talking 8 to 12 courts in one place with a director there to make it happen. So you bring tennis in from the beginning right up to the highest level. We were hoping that this could happen at Centennial because you already had 4 courts there and you got 265 acres. And we're looking for 3 to 4 acres to be able to expand eventually to 8 to 12. That didn't happen in this plan, but we understand. I mean, the sign was the fencing at Centennial Park in March. You've always been concerned about the winds there. So we understand why you're going there. But we also appreciate the listening to the feedback at the December meeting, because that's where the 2 communities, pickleball and tennis, both came to these guys and said, we don't want distributive courts, multi-use courts throughout the neighborhoods. That does us no good. People aren't walking to tennis or walking to pickleball. They're actually driving. And they'll go to this park and look for a court. If it's not there, they have to drive to a different park. The need is for a centralized location for tennis and for pickleball. And so that's kind of how we came together, the 2 associations, the 2 communities. And I thank the pickleball community for joining with us in that vision. They're supporting us, the 6 courts at Centennial, with the understanding that we will support them as they push for a central location for pickleball also. And that may be North Orchard, that may be 3 Oaks. I'm not sure. We're not there yet. But Diane and I have had those conversations and worked with Melody and Perry also. So that's in the works. Not to get ahead of us, but So for tonight, I just want to say thank you for you guys for listening to us and making those changes in December, because our world, our tennis world is different than it was back when the research started. And for the pickleball folks, thanks for sharing the vision with us, and thanks for joining us on the journey. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well done, 40-year resident here in Vacaville, retired veteran, Travis. Tony's given me the vice president job here to help with the CTA. So I want to bring the emotional side of this. 78-year-old guy playing tennis for 50 years, very healthy. I have 14 grandkids. I believe in tennis to the point where I invested in a court in my property out here in English Hills. I want them to have this kind of health. I'm asking you guys to convince the city. Healthy, young youth, physically, emotionally, mentally. We see so much of this going on the mental side of it. And I'm here to remind you, after 50 years of tennis, it really helps the kids develop. Or you take that message to the city.
Thank you. Okay, I'll leave public comment open. One more comment.
My name is Michelle Snonen. I've been a very long resident here in Vacaville since I was a child. And I've started paying a little bit more attention to what's been going on in Sentinel Park. I use it for 30 plus years, and I enjoy the openness of the park very much. I want to make sure that we're all also being realistic here about the impact of the traffic that's going to be coming into this area, and making sure that we're actually keeping an eye on that. It's going to definitely increase. I love the fact that we're increasing what we're doing, but traffic should be something that's definitely concerned. I think we've overlooked that on some of the past things we've done with businesses that have come in, and it's created a couple of nightmares in a couple of areas that didn't have problems. So making sure that we are using the main entrance of the park and getting that traffic directed there. You have lights there, and it's easier to get in and out and gauge the traffic. I appreciate Mr. Hesterman for adding in on something about the maintenance facilities for this park, because that is something that's been a big thing for me, is the maintenance of the parks. So thank you for taking that into consideration. But I also want to make sure that along these ways that we're doing this is that, you know, when you're going to be adding picnic benches and barbecues and, you know, other facilities, is that we are also maintaining trash cans, and that they're going to be scattered throughout the park so that people can stop throwing the litter all over the place, because that's exactly what's going to happen. And I know I do a lot of cleanup on the park myself. And so I like, and other people that I know who go regularly do a lot of hand pickup themselves. So I just want to make sure that we're making sure that we're keeping an eye on the ball on this and not missing the fact that, oh yeah, we forgot about traffic. Oh, we need more trash cans, and that we have the maintenance crew that's going to be there to take care of it, because this is expansive. This is going to be huge. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no other public comment, I'll go ahead and close public comment and open it to commissioner questions and comments. And I have Commissioner Thompson first.
Thank you, Chair. My only comment, concern is that earlier, is my mic not on? Can you hear me okay? Okay, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you're on.
Earlier this year, we identified 5 major projects, CIP projects presented in the City Council that this commission endorsed, sent them up to City Council. They were approved by City Council. One of them was the priority of a recreation center Yet I see the recreation center in phase two, and that concerns me deeply because we've identified during this commission, as we evaluated those 5 projects, we identified a need with the existing skate center and running out of a lease in roughly 12 to 14 months. Don't quote me on the timing, but I'm sure Hugh has all of this information. And then we're 3 years minimum away from even starting construction on anything at Centennial. And then this is in phase two, which means it's more like 10 years. Yeah, or something significantly out there. And that concerns me, that was identified as a top need, a high priority item for the community. This entire commission agreed upon that. I believe council also endorsed that, and yet it's in phase two. The other elements of the park look outstanding, and we could debate, 10 courts versus 12 courts versus all of these little things. We're going to have a lot of difference of opinion, but that was a primary concern because this commission absolutely endorsed that as a high priority item. Council endorsed that as a high priority item, and yet it's in phase two. So that concerns me deeply.
Vasquez, would you like me to respond to that? Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Excuse me. Funding, of course, for the rec center is huge, and you all are aware of that. It won't take, it'll take more than a couple of years to pull that kind of money together. And you're absolutely correct that there will be time involved in the design and, all the public input, the sequel, all that stuff is going to take a lot of time. I will take this opportunity, I'll stick my neck out a little bit here, and say that we think we have some unique ways to fund what you see as phase one. And so we're planning at the June commission meeting to present an idea to you. And so that phase two really won't be changing in its position, but that we might accelerate phase one. And so that's why this is in phase two. Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. I have Commissioner Shea next.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a lot of questions. I just want to give you a heads up. So I'm going to start with tennis. As I went through the packet and I read all of the handwritten comments, and I was at the second meeting in December, it just kept coming up and a theme in the last year in our commission meetings have been that the pickleball / tennis community have been shouting from the rooftops that they have this need. And then it's echoed again here tonight. So I understand space and wind and things like that are all factors, but why I'm not seeing why there's only 6 courts when consistently this community has been advocating, and this is a perfect spot. I see it as a way to fulfill 2 needs. If there's increased amount of tennis courts, that helps the pickleball community. I know we're staying on topic with Centennial tonight, but this is kind of a 2 birds, 1 stone situation, right? And it seems as though, it's an easy win. To increase the amount of courts. And I would welcome you to speak. I don't know the back end of things, and I don't know, what logistically what drove that decision, but if you could speak to that tonight. The other question I had regarding tennis courts, and you may have already kind of, abstractly answered it with your last comment, Hugh, was that you have some creative ways to fund phase one, and that may be impacting why the tennis courts were in phase two. But again, that seemed to be an easy win to me, and something that would fulfill a need that's been heavily advocated for in our community more quickly and make, a lot of people that have been advocating for that happy. But again, I think you kind of, touched on that a little bit. So if you could speak to that as well, could it be switched to phase one? Could that be expedited, or do your creative funding mechanisms kind of preclude that? I also, well, can you go ahead and speak to that before I, start going down the rest of my laundry list?
Sure, with the chair's permission.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's several things that restrict, I would say, the number of tennis courts can be provided at this location. That's not to say we couldn't, as the individual phases are fine-tuned, and Meredith was talking a little bit about some of the more additional public input and design that goes into each individual phase. So this is just a master planning phase, but I wouldn't say that that's not possible, but it'll be at a cost of something else, whether it be parking or maybe room for the rec center. I will say the rec center, we want to make sure we provide enough parking for the rec center. So those two things are going to be competing issues. I think the tennis community also has some other irons in the fire too, which is another moving part. We've had a lot of moving parts throughout this whole process since even the 90s. And so we're juggling constantly. I kind of think about, a gymnast walking a beam where you can go too far either way if you're not careful. So we've balanced it at 6 based on the available space in that low area where the wind is protected from both the south and the north, and then also with our envisioned needs for parking for the rec center. So it's not a specific answer to your question, but the day isn't done. This is looking at the master plan. So we'll take some more look at that. And then your second question was about the phasing. And yes, you're right. I don't think having it in phase 2 is at a cost to when it would occur. It will still happen. What we do think is that there's a good opportunity for phase 1 to happen much sooner. And so and we'll discuss that. I mean, I'll bring that as a formal presentation to you next month. But the phasing in phase 2 for the tennis courts, there's a number of things there that all have to work together. That's getting utilities down to the site. That's getting pavement, meaning the parking lot, all the things that are associated with the rec center too, which we're designing the whole thing all at one time. So it's not like we can go charging in there and just drop in tennis courts. We want to make sure we've got all the infrastructure, the underground, the juxtaposition of the different pieces correct at the same time. So does that help you?
It does. And I'm hearing keep on advocating tennis community as we go through all of these community feedback sessions that seem to be forthcoming. And I will continue to advocate for that as well on behalf of pickleball and tennis communities. I also wanted to ask, so there were some themes, right, in the community feedback. And I also read, the summary reports of each of the meetings at the end. But there were just a few things that, again, were themes. They kept coming up. They were in multiple comments. Tennis was, of course, one of them. It was heavily advocated for. The other one was the dog park. This is something that people are very passionate about, is their pets and dog parks. I've come across that also with the Play for All planning committee. People very passionate about dog parks. They are very passionate about what's going to happen in this dog park. And I noticed that the change that you made in this particular report was to add lighting. But another thing that was heavily advocated for was shade cover shelters and agility courses, seating, like those kinds of things. Were those, and I couldn't find if it was initially included, and you just had to add the lighting portion, or are these things that aren't?
Yes, if I may, Madam Chairperson. Yes, that is, at this point, our cost estimate for our item for the dog park does include covered seating areas, the lighting, the agility course, all of those elements in dog park. And to be frank, I kept this at a fairly high level presentation because otherwise we'd be here for 2 hours detailing tiny details. So yes, all of that is in there, and we did add a number of kind of small shade shelters into that cost estimate now that we have developed for the city. So they do have a line item and are being accounted for.
Perfect, thank you. To speak to one of the public comments, and I had questions about it as well. At what part, of the process is it going to be, after the environmental impact? What part of the planning process does address, that parking is built into the plan, but how do we address the traffic and the parking questions that people have? And what part, when does that come?
Right. So as I mentioned, part of the technical studies that would be done for the CEQA process. So the CEQA process, and forgive me if the commission is already very familiar with this, I'll just kind of go through it. Usually starts with an initial study, which is sort of a checklist study where the planners and specialists in this will go through and identify what are potential issues with the site and then where is more information needed. And I think based on the public comments we have and the size of this development, I certainly expect that one of the items that will be checked off on that initial study is traffic. And then there are traffic planning specialists who will do models based on the proposed uses of the park and known, there's mathematical modeling about how many trips that generates and things like that they can use to figure out what are peak uses and how much traffic they expect to see on roads and parking at the site and things like that. So that would all be looked at in the environmental review process. And then the results of those studies would be part of what gets put out for public comment so that the community can review it. And if they are like, well, I think that your assumptions in here or there are, I don't agree with them, or maybe did you take into account these other things when you were looking at traffic? Those are questions that can be asked at that point.
That would be the first round of public comment.
Yeah, so that would be in the environmental review, the CEQA document preparation.
Thank you. I actually think that answers my questions for right now. But yes, thank you so much. Thanks for the presentation. Thank you for the public comment. And I may have follow-up questions.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Shea. I have Vice Chair McMahon next.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I do have a lot of the same concerns that have already been expressed. One of my big concerns is 5 phases. We have talked about many projects here recently, one of them being Owl Patch. Owl Patch was a 2-phase project. Phase 1 was completed, I believe, in the 80s. Phase 2 has still not been completed, nearly 40 years later. So when I see 5 phases, we're not talking about a year or 2 from now where we can enjoy tennis or pickleball. We're talking about grandkids enjoying pickleball, and they're going to ask, what is pickleball? Because there will be some new trend in 20, 30, 40 years from now. So it's very concerning. And it's also concerning that it's $123 million today. So I think that we really have to consider that. When we're talking about phase 2, 3, and 4, realistically, that could be 20, 30, possibly 40 years from now. Is that accurate, Hugh?
Yes, I think it is. It's largely tied to the future demand and the funding availability. And this commission, I'm sure, is aware that the new park diff will be, development impact fees will be implemented as of the 1st of July. That'll be the first significant change since 1992. So we've been sorely underfunded, at least in my opinion, for a lot of years. So we'll be playing some catch up. And you're right, Commissioner McMahon, that this is a long-range plan.
Right.
It is not intended to satisfy all of the unmet needs of just today,
right,
but also the unmet needs of many new residents that may have not even heard of Vacaville yet. So it's looking seriously several decades down the road.
Sure, and I appreciate that explanation. With that said, I know that our tennis people are interested in 6 courts, and I think that that's great. And if we can add courts to that, but I do believe that we owe it to, and I don't want to get off topic, but we do owe it to our pickleball people something more immediate and not 10, 20 years from now. We need to address that now. Some of my other concerns are, I've lived here for many years, and we have talked about Allison Parkway possibly being connected from Vaca Valley to Browns Valley. How, as we grow, I can absolutely see that happening. How does that affect this plan?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And at one time, Allison Boulevard was to connect to Allison Parkway at the north end. So much so that the city took that opportunity to install underground main sewer line that follows that alignment. That's the history of that sewer line. Um, but it has since been determined that I guess you could give a lot of reasons for it, but one of them is the parkland is more important to the people than a new parkway. It also divides the industrial area to the north, which is more accessible off of the freeway than going through a residential neighborhood. So I don't know if I answered your question, but there's no plans to make that roadway connect other than for the purposes of the park.
Okay. Okay, very good. I do share some of the same concerns that I believe both of my fellow commissioners have already mentioned, the rec center. This commission put that at a high priority just a few meetings ago. The council did as well. I think that this plan has been in the planning phase for many years. It kind of looks like that rec center was put in there. I don't believe that that's going to be enough parking adjacent to that rec center. That's, the plan is for, I believe, what, 50 to 70,000 square feet. So that's a large facility. And you think about the people in and out of there. So I want to make sure we address that and ensure that we do have enough parking to accommodate people using that rec center someday. This park is adjacent to many neighbors' homes. I'm a little surprised that there's not more of those people here tonight. Some of those people have expressed to me, not everybody wants lights on fields. And I don't believe every field needs lights. I think we have to be very careful with that. But we got to consider that as well. Has there been any concerns from neighbors saying, I just don't want this in my backyard?
So that is a ongoing concern for sure. I think Meredith alluded to the attempts in our planning to keep the lighted facilities away from there. There also is an existing conditional use permit for Centennial Park that stipulates that no lighted fields would be within 1,000 feet of the residents to the west. And so we've tried to honor that and recognize that. There's also been some wonderful improvements in lighting technology nowadays with LED lights and great cutoff, so you don't have the glare and the issues with the light. But reality is, it's not the issue with the light isn't the big thing. It's the associated nighttime noises. And so that is another concern that we want to make sure we address. And that's also another reason why the main entrance is being promoted for the Allison Drive entrance, so that exiting crowds can go out that way and not be heading out towards the residents.
Okay. Okay, very good. Those are all my questions. Again, I would just encourage the commission as we look at this tonight and add comments. Again, this is a long-term plan. So I'm hoping that we can, as a commission, give our suggestions, and hopefully we see it back rather soon to where we can eventually get it to the council so they can approve this, because this is a long-term plan that I don't know, my grandchildren may get to enjoy someday, or if I'm still here. But anyways, thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you, Vice Chair McMahon. And just a friendly reminder to the commission too, I know I gave it to the public, just to try and focus the feedback, questions, comments strictly to Centennial. So that way we don't get any Brown Act violations. Council Nam is giving me eyes from across the room. Okay, I have Commissioner Oz next.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Meredith and Hugh, for your presentation and all the work that you put into this. I mean, it takes a lot of work to put together that type of a document, and a lot of planning involved. With respect to the tennis courts, I just wanted to confirm, I thought I read that there are tennis courts, but they would be striped for pickleball. Is that?
So not at Centennial. That was not the intention. Both, and perhaps members of the community can correct me if I'm wrong, the preference is to have dedicated courts rather than multi-striped courts. Lacking dedicated courts for pickleball, we have striped some tennis courts to at least solve an interim problem with getting enough for pickleball. But the desire is for dedicated courts.
And I understand that. I was just thinking as an interim solution, when I thought I read something about that they would be striped or at least, intermediate play. But again, we're 4 years away from that actually occurring. But
Perhaps you were seeing an earlier version. I'm not sure. There has been some discussion about, and you probably heard it tonight, about double striping at other parks to help alleviate the need. But we're not proposing that with the Centennial tennis courts.
And then there was reference to the water feature being changed to maybe a low water use feature. What can you just generally describe what's the difference?
Yeah, so there's a lot of options for water features, and just after that public comment, it may be instead of having something that has like or jets of water or the big tipping buckets and those kinds of big, what you would call a splash pad, that although usually that water is recycled, it's just using a lot more volume of water that we might instead use something that's using misters that are putting out a much more fine mist. Kids can still run through, it cools the area, you can have fun kind of in the water, but you're not necessarily out there in your swimsuit getting soaked. And so something like that would just use less water kind of overall being emitted. But that's, I think, one of those things that as that splash pad is developed, they can look at what the technology is. I will tell you just from the industry side of things, technology in these kinds of recirculation, all of that has changed drastically over the last 10 to 12 years. And so, even in another 5 years, we might have a lot more other new technology that's kind of changes, hey, how do we approach these kinds of water play features?
And then I think there's also been some questions and answers on the lit courts. I really support the lit courts, but I certainly recognize we want to keep them. We don't want to have them impact the neighboring communities. But it just seems to me that when we can, we should be lighting courts to get the most capacity out of that facility. And then lastly, could you just quickly run through the phase 1 projects, really just tick them off?
So the phase 1 projects would be the bike park, the Great Meadow, which would include the walking trails, the picnic overlook, the detention basins, the first 9 holes of the disc golf court, and then the dog park and its associated parking lot, which would be new parking to Centennial Park. Also, the bike park has its own associated parking lot, so that's also new parking being added to the park at that north end.
So those are all relatively low-cost items that can be quickly funded, I guess. Is that?
Yes, that's correct. And again, the phasing there's some flexibility to the phasing intentionally. We do believe that we can implement this first phase, we think, at a quick pace and at very low cost to the city. And I promise you, I'll explain more of that next month.
Okay. And why would the parking be a priority for phase 1? Is it?
Well, each area needs a little bit of parking. So with the bike park, there's no accessibility to the parking at the south end. So it needs its own in that area. And then same thing for the dog park. All of the parking, I mean, there's nobody that says you can't park at any one place and walk over there, but everybody wants to park as close as they can to their destination. So we've tried to accommodate that where we can.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Oz. I have a couple of questions myself. The area, I guess, the whole kind of like area to the right, the nature exploration area, I know I'm a frequent user of this park, February, actually pretty much all year long, because I have kids in baseball and one kid in soccer. And something that I didn't notice, prior to the December meeting, but noticed more recently with all the rains, that the whole area to the right of the drive-in, like leading up to Horse Creek, was pretty much full of water, with all of the rains that we got. And so I just wonder what that looks like when we look across to the rest of the park that isn't developed. And we're talking about adding trails and adding a whole bike park. I think, I mean, I'm not a meteorologist. I have no idea, but I mean, it seems like there are, talks about climate change and potentially California having continuous rains like we have this past year or the beginning of this year. And so, what does it look like when we're building out improvements in those areas and mitigating any kind of flooding or just building pockets of water?
Yeah, let me try to see if I can address that. We didn't really talk about that in the presentation, but the area that you see in purple there, that is the detention area here, will remain, and it'll continue to operate just very similar to what it currently does. And then Meredith did mention that we propose to increase the size of the wetlands over here that are near the rec center. The area, interestingly enough, the area that's where we're showing the parking lot and the new soccer field is actually 40 acres of detention currently. So water does pond there in a serious event. When I say serious, I mean before it has time to go underneath the canal, and you'll see water ponding there. So we do need to provide that. What we're showing is some new areas north of the creek, so that water would instead be routed to the north into those new wetlands and significantly increasing the volume that's available there. This is all coupled with the city's attempts to solving flooding problems elsewhere in the city too. Did I get a good answer for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I just don't venture out into that area much, and you can't really see it from the naked eye just driving in, right? You can definitely see that area, the current wetland, like when you're driving into the park.
Right.
So I was just kind of concerned in the farther outlying areas in terms of pooling or flooding out there, but that helps. So thank you. I am also very concerned about parking because I do frequent this park for pretty much the entire year. I didn't see a figure in this new revised master plan in the 12-page document about how many parking lots or parking spaces were increasing it by. But I am very, very concerned about it. When you think about baseball, the season is high from like February to June, and that's even depending on if the city runs their own tournaments outside of that. And then obviously soccer, August to November, but then they also have outside tournaments and such, like this upcoming weekend that everybody is stressed about between baseball and soccer. But I don't think that between even just these two existing parks, adding the recreational facility and then moving tennis over to that side near baseball, like this is just not enough parking. I think, because I am out there early Saturday mornings, I see the tennis folks out there. Not right now, obviously, but out there, and their area and lot is pretty full. And so I'm definitely very, very concerned about parking. I would say even now as a very like a high user, I think when you think about families who come out to watch baseball and soccer, grandparents, it deters them because some of the parking isn't accessible even right now with like the dirt lots. But just the stress of trying to find a parking spot, having to walk really far. So I know that we talk about overflow lots in other areas, in a space that is supposed to be for recreation and for families to come out and see little kids come and play baseball or play soccer. There's just not enough parking. So I think, it's challenging for families when, they go out there to spend a couple hours and they can't find parking. Hopefully in the return of the revised plan, it will include more information about parking and maybe how many spaces. Because I think just based on the visual, it doesn't look like enough.
Excuse me, Chair
Yes.
Vasquez, we can provide the hard numbers right now, what's in the plan.
Oh, I
We have
didn't
that at
see
our
it.
fingertips.
No,
Go ahead.
I apologize. It is not written in the document, but we came
Oh.
prepped with that thinking
Oh, okay.
there might be a question.
Okay.
So we did add it up. We have at this point the current plan as is at build out would have 948 parking spaces. The existing parking on site is around 350, so this would add 568 spaces to the park, and it also would include approximately 100 overflow parking spaces using the roller hockey court and the gravel lot at the bike park. So at build out, we would potentially be able to park around 1,050 cars on site.
Okay, thank you. I think it would be helpful though in the next plan to see it by area, because you showed a visual of this space out in the event pavilion as like a potential like wedding venue. I mean, people invite like 100 to 200 people to their wedding, and so or just even in general events. And so what does that whole lot look like? I think it would be helpful for us as commissioners just to be able to kind of see that visually, in terms of, like with all of the elements. I mean, obviously we're not professionals in the field of parking, and like you're saying, it'll be looked at extensively from all different angles. But we are users of the park. Like Keith and I know, like with baseball, like you've got 4 fields there, so you've got 8 teams playing on top of the other 8 that are coming to warm up and practice, and so and getting prepared for the next set of games. And so, I mean, that's a lot of people, but just kind of knowing what the parking looks like around the park would be helpful. And I think just in general, like I think my consistent concern and frustration is the consultation with the constituent groups that use this area, in particular, the Little League and the Vacaville United Soccer League. I think obviously tennis has been very involved in the conversation, but I continue to be concerned that these plans and these meetings are happening during some of these leagues' peak seasons, like right now. I mean, there's games and practices happening right now as we speak. I reached out to folks to encourage them to come, but the capacity isn't there. And so, like I think as we envision these park master plans and consultation meetings, like how are we inviting these folks to the table who are, high and frequent users of the park, but aren't always at the table. And so I think, like I even asked on Monday, like had YSAT been notified, and we didn't notify them until Tuesday. And YSAT is the youth sports activities team, which includes all of the leagues who have contracts with the city that use the different parks and facilities in the city. And so it's problematic to me that we aren't consulting the active users of the field in the area, and really which was intended for this space. Went to my dad's house the other day and he busted out his dusty archives of reporter articles from the 70s of, the initial vision of this park. And it was softball fields and space for, young adults and kids to use. So I really hope that we can continue to build that communication plan. I think even in the phasing of the construction, what does that look like for the leagues in terms of impact to their activities? Because, we know that construction can be heavily inconvenient sometimes to life, even though it has to happen. I think it can be very challenging for users of the area when these different phases start to happen. I'm trying to think of anything else. I think that's all I have for now. Does anybody else on the commission have other questions or comments that you've thought of in between? Oh, we got Commissioner Berumen.
Oh, I've just been sitting back here listening to my fellow commissioners. They pretty much asked all the questions, but it is a concern with that recreation center not being part of the top of priorities because we all voted for it, went to council and everything. And then secondly, my fellow pickleballers over there, they're advocating, I think been going on since 2009, advocating, somebody's been in here for pickleball, and still to this day, we don't have a facility for them or an area where they can have their pickleball. I think that's very concerning. Again, I know things move at a very slow pace when it comes to having things happen. I won't say too much more than that, but I really appreciate you guys' representation tonight. But just those concerns that are very in the park and everything else that my commissioners brought up. But thank you so much.
Chair Vasquez, can I
Yes. Yep.
provide a little clarity there? We are simultaneously working on providing pickleball facilities, and we do have a signed contract for providing dedicated courts over in the Roberts Ranch subdivision. So those will be the first 4 that are lighted and provided to the public as a dedicated set of courts. We believe that those will happen way before these tennis courts, as perhaps as early as under construction later this year.
Thank you both for the presentation. Seeing no other commissioner questions or comments, I guess we look forward to seeing the revised plan come back through commission with this additional feedback.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you both. Okay. Where? Okay, so we're at agenda item 10, committee reports. So we've got first on the list, Play for All Committee, Commissioner Shea.
There. So Play for All is moving forward with phase 2. The board is planning on moving forward. It will include more parking, dog park, sports fields. But it's a theme that's come up, and I know that you guys have been hearing about it at the city level, is parking. And I know that Vice Chair McMahon spoke about it at our city council meeting recently. It's a sore need. This park is a jewel of the community, and people are treating it as such, and they're there all day, every day. It's massive crowds out at that park, and it has been cause for some unsafe parking. I noticed that Public Works did have to put like cones out to keep people from parking on that shoulder. It's kind of an unsafe situation. Tom Felipe has made adjustments to the phase 2 master plan to squeeze in more parking. And he will be consulting with Public Works, but just want to advocate for that in partnership with the city and, cooperating with him as he's building out phase 2. He had, I want to say it was 110, or brought it up to 110 more spots with the phase 2 changes that he made, which will be helpful, but getting, help from the city and from Public Works in expediting that would be good. And yeah, the crowds have not let up, but Play for All is a very popular park. We witnessed that ourselves on Sunday. We got there for an event and it was already jam-packed out. So people are enjoying the park all day, every day, and continue just to look for news updates from the Play for All committee. And of course, fundraising, everybody buy bricks and get that money to fill the gap from funding that's available now and, inflation costs and gaps and whatnot. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions for Commissioner Shea on Play for All? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Commissioner Shea. Next, we've got Vice Chair McMahon, who will give us an update on Vacaville Arts and Cultural Alliance Committee.
Thank you very much, Chair. We did meet on April the 20th, and Arts Week in Vacaville is scheduled for September 15th through the 24th. That is put on by Visit Vacaville in collaboration with the city and many other groups throughout town. September is a very busy month. There are a lot of activities before Arts Week and after Arts Week with different groups, music, artists. There's a lot going on. Visit Vacaville will absolutely put out a calendar through their website, and it will list just a whole string of events going on. On the 23rd of September, VPAT is going to be open to different groups. There will be no charge. Each group is going to get 30 minutes so they can go in and do their performance. So if you have a group that may want to perform free of charge, just please go ahead and contact the VPAT and they can arrange that. Rachel is working with that. And then also it was brought up again, many of the artists that use Andrews Park and perform out there are looking for some sort of shade structure, something similar to the town square, like a shade sail. So if we can maybe address that or look into that, it would really help out there. It would help with all of our city events. You know, particularly in the summer, obviously it's extremely warm. 4th of July, Creek Walk. If we can get creative and maybe come up with something there, that would really help out. So that was brought up again. And that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you just clarify? So you said folks can use VPAT. Do you mean during Arts Week?
On the 23rd of September, one day. So if you have a group of artists and they're looking to perform, they will get a 30-minute slot at VPAT to perform. And you can they can contact VPAT, probably Rachel Morgan would be able to schedule that. It fills up very quick. They did it in the past, and it fills up very quick.
Thank you. Any commissioner questions or comments for Vice Chair McMahon? Thank you so much for the update on VACA. Let's see. So for the next item, Arts Advisory Committee, Recreation Manager Melody Ocampo is going to give us an update since Commissioner Gutierrez is absent tonight.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so unfortunately, we did have to cancel our last Arts Advisory Committee meeting. It was scheduled for April 12th, and due to some unforeseen circumstances, we were not able to meet quorum minimums. So we have rescheduled, and we'll be having it 1 week from today on May 10th in this very room at 6 p.m.
Thank you. Any commissioner questions or comments for Melody? Okay, thank you so much. And then item D, Commissioner Oz will give us an update on Vacaville Performing Arts Theater Season of Shows Committee.
Thank you, Chair. Not too much to report other than we have quite a few offers out right now for talent for next year, and we're hoping to get some response back within the next by our next meeting, and then we'll make some decisions based upon this schedule about filling in the last couple spots. But Judy feels like we're ahead of schedule, and we're pretty confident that we're going to have a great lineup for next year.
Thank you. Any commissioner questions or comments for Commissioner Oz on VPAT? All right, seeing none. Thank you so much, Commissioner Oz. So moving on to item 11, reports of Park Planner. We'll invite Park Planner Hesterman back on down to the table and Mike to give us update on park projects.
Thank you, Chair Vasquez. I only have a couple real quick things to report on. One is the project plans for the project at Meadowlands Park are now out to bid. So that actually has a closing date of May 23rd coming up very soon. And included in that is an expected or an engineer's estimate on that project of $824,000. Also, I want to report on the status of Dreamers Park. As you probably know, it's been fenced for a while. The contractor, it's currently still his park. However, the 90-day period is just about expired, and we anticipate that that will go to the council for their approval, or hopefully they, assuming they will approve that on the 23rd, accepting that park. And if that occurs, then the fencing will come down. And I think you probably have noticed, or at least heard, that the contractor down in Lower Lagoon Valley has nearly completed the paving in Lagoon Valley Park, which repaired a lot of the damage that was caused both from failed compaction and then also the storms that we had, which very seriously impacted his new work. And he's trying to accommodate that in time for the Loop the Lagoon on May 6th. Yeah, right.
Yes,
Thank you.
that's also this weekend. There's lots going on this weekend.
Yeah, that's real soon, isn't it?
Uh,
Any questions?
Any commissioner questions or comments for you?
Yeah, rough.
Oh. Commissioner
Yeah,
Berman.
get that dream park open. My sister-in-law lives there. I mean, she's lived there 2 years already. She hadn't been able to utilize the park. So she goes, "You know somebody, Ralph?" I go, "Yeah, we know somebody," but again, everything moves slow.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I was out there taking photos of the Dawn Redwood last week, and so many people came by and said, "When's the fence
Yeah,
coming down?"
yeah.
And a lot of them, I would say the majority of them, were not from that neighborhood.
Yeah, because I live in that area, so it's like looking forward to seeing that open.
All right, thank you so much, Hugh. No other questions
My
or
pleasure.
comments? Thank you so much, Hugh, for the updates. Okay, so item 12, reports of Recreation Manager Elizabeth Crescente with program updates.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tracy's going to pull up the report, so we'll get started here in a few minutes. I actually have quite a few things to report on, so it's kind of fun to give you guys some good news of what's going on in the department. So next slide, Tracy, thank you. So we had Vacacon on April 22nd, and it was a huge success for us. Thank you to Vice Chair McMahon for coming out and helping to judge the cosplay contest. So we had well over 2,000 attendees. It really seems like 3 times that many with everyone roaming around Ulatis. We had over 60 exhibitors and artists, so vendors combined. Exhibitors were placed inside Ulatis, artists were placed outside, so there was just a lot of people everywhere. And then in the cosplay contest, we had about 80 plus. There were a lot of people who were dressed up, just roaming around, just cause. So it was a great event, and so successful that we are potentially looking at doing a 2-day event next year. So that's pretty exciting. Next slide, please. Want to highlight May is Older Americans Month. So if you get a chance anytime during the month of May to stop by McBride and see any of our programs in action, we will be receiving a proclamation from City Council on May 9th. This is something that we do annually, so it's just really nice to highlight some of the activities that we have going on there. And our new recreation coordinator, Georgie Zavolka, who's you met a few months ago, has been doing a bang-up job bringing back some of the programs post-COVID and really just getting some life back into that building. So it's really lovely. Next slide, Tracy. This Saturday, also happening May 6th, is our big part-time all-staff training. So this is an opportunity for us to bring all of our part-time staff together from across all program areas, and we do a 4-hour kind of a concentrated effort on different training topics. It ranges from year to year. This year, we're going to focus on some customer service related stuff. We're going to focus on team building. We're going to focus on some of the typical housekeeping stuff, like how to complete your timesheet properly. And then it's also an opportunity to allow the staff to meet each other who may not typically get to work together. So we're really excited about that. This photo is from a couple years ago when we were at Ulatis, and Melody had this fantastic team building Lego activity that was it was dynamite. So just trying to explain a little bit about what's going on in our photo. Yes, we do pay our staff to play with Legos. Next slide, Tracy. So one of the projects that we have going on right now is related to Lagoon Valley. It's something that Hugh has been instrumental in helping us get a trail etiquette trifold pamphlet put together with the help of our marketing team. And we're kind of in the trial run period of it where we're printing a batch, putting them out there in some strategic locations for the public to use. And then based on the feedback that we get, we'll make edits as needed. So this is obviously just an educational component for the folks that go out to Lagoon Valley. Not everyone is from Vacaville. We know it's a regional park and we get people from all around the surrounding area. So one side of the pamphlet will have some of our just basic rules related to Lagoon Valley, and then this is we'll also have the trail map, which will be on the back side, and that's what's shown here. And then another Lagoon Valley related project that we're in the very beginning stages of implementing, but we're super excited for, is putting some trail yields, courtesy yield signs out. Also strategically placed at locations around the park. We have a community equestrian group that frequents the park, and they have offered to purchase some signs and donate them to us. And so we're working with Wallace and his crew to potentially get those out there. So if you're out at Lagoon Valley, keep an eye out for those things and feel free to provide some feedback to us. Next slide, Tracy. And then another project that we recently had completed was the replacement of plexiglass at the front counter at McBride Senior Center, which doesn't seem like a huge deal, but it is, because it actually provides a much safer environment for our staff to work in. And that's always something that we're concerned about with having our buildings open to the general public. So the plexiglass that you see here was coordinated through Public Works as well as risk management, and mimics the style that we have over at City Hall. So it is bulletproof, and then it also has the strategically placed doors and cabinets where the public can pass documents through to our staff. So really just a kind of a lovely implementation to be able to help our staff feel more safe in their work environment. Next slide, Tracy. And so another event happening this Saturday on May 6th. It's the magic day for everything, you guys. Kids Day at the Adobe. So this is going to be hosted by the Pena Adobe Historical Society. It's something that they do traditionally every year. It'll be from 11 to 2. They do arts and crafts. They're going to do tours of the historic buildings. They're going to have music out there. And then, of course, they're going to have fun. So just a few little pictures, some face painting. So if you're out and about cruising around all of the events in Vacaville, please put this stop on your agenda for the day. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take questions if anyone has them.
Questions or comments?
I did. That was nice to be able to do that. Thank you.
Well, I know I'm really excited that VacaCon, I heard through the grapevine, my sister and brother-in-law were able to attend this year, and I'm really excited that next year it'll be a 2-day event because we always have baseball on that Saturday, and so I know that my middle teenager will love to go next year. And they also entered the cosplay contest, and they got 9th out of 60. So yeah, they were very proud. I have a picture I can show you later. And then my other thought just about the Lagoon Valley trifold is there something on it that says, like, please don't drop me, please don't, like, leave litter, like, I just worry about adding paper out there, you know, and
yes,
we
are a little bit too. So that's one of the things that we're going to keep an eye out for is
what kind of litter impact that has on the park. And that's something that we're going to work on with Wallace's team as well. So it may be something that evolves into a QR code that you scan and then that's downloaded. So this will be kind of phase one to see how it goes.
Awesome. Any other commissioner questions or comments? All right. Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth, for those updates. And then moving on to Recreation Manager Melody Ocampo is going to give the reports of the director department updates on behalf of Director Hubbard.
Yes, hi.
He's also out tonight.
He is. So I do have the pleasure of sharing a few updates with you all. There is some progress made. We have an offer out to the vacant associate planner position. The individual is currently onboarding, so that is very exciting to get Hugh and Nemo some help with all the park projects. Thrilled about that. As you saw on your seats this evening, the new events guide are hot off the presses and just gotten mailboxes. It was earlier this week or late last, and so you all get an extra copy. Share that around. Make sure that you are sharing the great activities that we are doing throughout our community. And then lastly, the Arts and Culture Master Plan request for proposals went out last week. We do have a deadline of May 18th, and I've gotten a few inquiries, so we're excited to see some of those proposals roll in and excited to share those with you all when that starts rolling out and we get into contracting and then jumping right into community engagement. And that's it for tonight.
Thank you. Any commissioner questions or comments for Melody? Seeing none. Thank you so much, Melody, for those updates. And so we're moving on to appointment of committees. So everyone received last month, right, in our packet, the list of all of the committees and commissions that are under the Parks and Rec Commission. And we are looking for appointments for 3 of those. So we do this annually to give folks opportunity to serve on different interest groups and commissions. So I will go ahead and move on to the first one, which is appoint 1 commissioner to serve on the Play for All Park. So I'll either entertain a motion for a nomination or a self-nomination, however the commission would like to throw some names out there. And I have Commissioner Shea.
Do we get to choose the process that we do? Or are those all options? Can we?
I think it's either, all options, if you want to self-nominate or nominate another commissioner.
I would like to express interest in continuing to serve on the Play for All subcommittee. I thought you were throwing your hat in too, Ralph.
No, definitely, you're doing a great job. I think you should continue.
I have Commissioner Oz.
Well, I officially nominate Commissioner Shea.
Okay, so can we make that a motion?
A motion, yes.
Okay, okay, thank you. So I got a motion from Commissioner Oz and a second from McMahon. All those in favor of Commissioner Shea continuing on Play for All Park?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. So you will continue on Play for All Park. Thank you so much for your service on that. And next item, we've got appoint 1 commissioner to serve on the Youth Sports Advisory Team. Any nominations or names? I have Commissioner McMahon.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to nominate Commissioner Thompson. He's been on that committee for a couple years and done a really good job for us. So I would like to make that a motion.
Okay, I'll second. So we've got a motion for Commissioner Thompson to continue on YSAT from Commissioner McMahon and a second from Shea. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, great. Thank you. So Commissioner Thompson, thank you for your service on that and continued service on YSAT. So item C, appoint 1 commissioner to serve as the commission liaison for the Arts Advisory Committee. Are there any nominees? I have Commissioner Oz.
I don't know if it'd be appropriate, but I'd like maybe make a motion to nominate Commissioner Gutierrez for that. She's not here tonight.
Council, now can we nominate someone who is not present and willing to accept the nomination here?
She currently serves on.
She currently serves on Arts Advisory.
It is up to the entire commission, absent some reason why Commissioner Gutierrez wouldn't be able to serve. If the entire commission so chooses to have Commissioner Gutierrez serve in that role, then she would be able to accept that nomination and be.
I mean, my guess is she would probably entertain it
so.
and want to continue. So I have a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so motion by Oz and second by Thompson to reappoint Commissioner Gutierrez to the Arts Advisory Committee. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. That was very easy, everyone. Thank you all so much for the appointments and for your continued service outside of the commission, but in honor of the commission. So thank you all. Moving on to reports of commission. So we've got, let's see, start with Commissioner Oz.
Thank you, Chair. A great meeting tonight. I have no other comments. So.
All right, thank you so much. Commissioner Baruman. Oh.
Don't touch it.
You got trigger happy there.
Well, a great presentation today. Good to see you back at it again, huh? But I also want to thank, this is a great magazine. I do part-time over at the Vacaville Chamber, and so many people come in to get it for their kids and everything. So it's very awesome. There's so much going on. We're very fortunate to have it in Vacaville. And fellow commissioners are, again, doing a great job and on top of things. That's all. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Let's see, let's go to Vice Chair McMahon.
Thank you very much, Chair. I did have the opportunity to judge the Vacaville costume contest, and it was very interesting, to say the least. There were a lot of people there, a lot of costumes. I was not familiar with a lot of it, but I learned a lot that day. I have attended a lot of events at ULATIS. I have never seen that many people there. So really nice job to the staff. It's not easy to put on an event like that. Parking was a bit of an issue. It took me about 20 minutes to find a parking spot in ULATIS. I did see people parking across the street at other facilities, so it's something to think about next year. We may have to shuttle people, perhaps from the transportation center, or have an agreement with some other parking lots. But a great event. It was well attended, obviously, and I think everybody at the end of the day had a great time. So thank you to everybody that was involved with that. I did have the opportunity this past Sunday to attend the BU event. Commissioner Shea did an outstanding job. I think she was the point of contact for everything that happened out there that day. It was a absolutely perfect day, beautiful day. It was well attended. I was concerned, I think, like some of my fellow commissioners, that parking was going to be an issue, and it was very well managed. And I think that all had to do with planning. So thank you very much for that. It was a great event. Many of the council members are out there, commissioners, and just different city staff. So really nice. And that's all I have. Thank you very much, everyone. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair McMahon. We'll move on to Commissioner Shea.
Thank you for your comments, Vice Chair McMahon. We did have BU on Sunday. It was our biggest event yet, with Vacaville People's Forum in partnership with Social Opportunities for Disabled Adults, Found It Peer Support Group, and District 3 Councilmember Mike Silva. We had more people out, more tables out than ever before. It is a resource fair. More than anything else, we call it a celebration because we do like to party, but it is really to connect people in the special needs and disabled community with resources, and kind of, pull them out of their silos and help them to find out what's out there for them. I have a lot of people to thank here tonight because I know they'll hear it. Thank you to the Parks and Rec staff. You guys took a lot of frantic emails and calls and gave me a lot of information and pointed me in the right directions. And I really want to thank other city staff, particularly Public Works, for coming out the weekend of when you guys aren't working. That's very appreciated, and put up signs and helped with event flow for parking. And thank you to the Vacaville Police Department and their cadets for managing the parking and making it go very seamlessly. It is difficult out there, and it is a dirt lot, and there were lots of little mini dirt tornadoes, but people were safe and their cars were safe. So that was a bonus. It was a very successful event, and I really appreciate all of the work that went in, on the city ends to helping make that happen. I do have one piece of feedback. And I know that this is just as you're going into, acquiring this new park, and it in a way that, I don't think has ever been done before within the city. But I know that there's, a park reservation system and Play for All. There's no plans for it to be on that system. However, you can get a special permit for Play for All. One thing that did happen the day of the event was when they have questions about reservations, they're typically directed, it's first come, first serve. And there was a family that had reserved some of the pavilions where we had housed event attendees and had permitted for the day. And the family was very upset, but the dad had a really good question. And he said, how do I find out in the future if anything like this happens? So I'm thinking that it could be very helpful to have a Play for All, just an event or just an info page for Play for All with a calendar on it, so that if there are any special permit events, which I anticipate there may be in the future, just because it is such a sought after park with so many pavilions, and the setup is perfect for events. I think it's probably just going to happen. That way, when people do call and ask, you can refer them to the info page on the city website and just say, there is a calendar listing any citywide events that might be at the park. That way, no other event organizers get yelled at by angry grandpas and dads. And other than that, and one other thing I think tonight that was mentioned, besides parking, I think that was our theme for this evening's meeting, is parking on multiple levels, is how do we, when we're looking at these huge projects that are, going out over the course of so many years, a lot of the comments that I heard tonight for the Centennial Project were, mentioned that none of the things that had been previously planned were concerns or wants or needs anymore. And Vice Chair McMahon brought up the same point, like this is something that, we may never see the fruition of here in our work on the commission. But how do we plan more efficiently for the slow rate of bureaucracy, and knowing that every time we do this, it's going to change in a couple years, right? Like that's just the further we move along in time, the quicker things move, especially with the advent of technology and, just the state of the world. Everything happens so fast. Is that something that, and it's really no answers needed right now. It's just a food for thought for not just your department, I think all city departments. Bureaucracy is slow. I heard an analogy once that said, smaller organizations are like little sailboats, and city governments or large entities are more, like battleships with multiple levels of hierarchy. And you can turn a sailboat around in a couple minutes, and it takes, several days to turn around a battleship. So I get it, but maybe, it is a consideration that a lot of the things we work on are outdated before we even get to see them or enjoy them or even vote on them again. And that is all I have for tonight.
All right, thank you so much, Commissioner Shea. Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank Vice Chair McMahon for the nomination, and my fellow commissioners for the reappointment to be on the Youth Sports Advisory Team. That is something that is near and dear to my heart, so I can look forward to continuing to working with youth sports. I do also want to comment, as someone who spends 10, 11 months a year out at Centennial Park, it is also something near and dear to my heart, and I appreciate all the work that Hugh Hesterman and his team has put into this. And I reiterate some of the previous comments, that the little details we could nitpick left and right, but we really need to provide something to the community sooner than later. whether it's pickleball courts or tennis courts or 10, or 12, or we need something for the community. I want the tennis group to have everything that they want, and I want the pickleball group to have everything they want, and the baseball group to have everything they want, and the bike path people, and the so on and so on. I want everyone to have everything that they want. But if we sit here and hash it over and over and over again, this has already been going on for 13 plus years. I want them to have something tomorrow, and I know that's unrealistic, but I want them to have something sooner than later. So hashing or nitpicking little details really is not serving the community. Let's move something forward and get something out there so that people can enjoy it.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. I think my dad's article was from the mid to late 70s, so it's very old. The park planning for Centennial's been a long time. Just wanted to thank everybody for their time tonight. I know we got a big packet tonight, and it's not always normal and typical of our commission, and just appreciate everybody coming tonight with lots of good questions. And thank you, Hugh, for your continued work on Centennial. I'm sure, we say up here that it's near and dear to our heart, but I'm sure it's definitely near and dear to your heart as well. I also was able to attend BU. I think I'm still tired and run ragged from it, along with Commissioner Shea, but she won't toot her own horn, but she had a lot to do with the creation of the event and putting special needs awareness on the map in terms of events, and giving them a platform to come together, but also have resources available to them. While all of these kind of entities exist out there individually, what we learn every year is a lot of times it falls on the parents of those with special needs. And so it's nice to actually bring the community together all in one place, so folks can see the resources out there to them, but also find support in each other. And so I just really appreciate Commissioner Shea's advocacy on that. So, and I know I sound like a broken record, but really just using our constituent groups as forms of communication and consultation, like Commissioner Shea was saying. Government is a bureaucracy and stuff takes a long time. And so as long as we can keep them communicated, in the loop with the master plans that we have going on, that would be great. And I know Commissioner Thompson does a lot through YSAT and trying to keep folks updated on the different things coming to the commission. And I really just look forward to the rest of May and Fiesta Days. Again, this is my family's 60th year participating in the Vacaville parade, or Fiesta Days parade. So we're really excited about that and looking forward to that coming up later this month. And I think with all that, see you all in June, and definitely looking forward to the rain going away. Just not 90 degrees. So hopefully we can get some nice.
Either or.
Yeah, I know. Hopefully we can get some spring in there. But with that, good night, Vacaville, and thank you, everyone.